Call to order. This is a regular board meeting of September 3rd, 2020. It is now 5:02. Let's start the roll call.
President Nguyen,
Here.
Vice President Lay,
Here.
Clerk Herrera,
Here.
Member Cortese,
Here.
Member Chavez.
Here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you, Member Lay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Okay, so some explanation. If there is any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on closed session agenda item at this time, please submit your public comment online by accessing the form on the district webpage or submit via text at 831-524-5100. Submit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comment submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please note that all meetings are recorded. All regular and special board meetings of the Board of Trustees and board study sessions are now streamed live on meeting nights and also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district YouTube channel listed on the district webpage. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Your comment will be noted and will be directed to the superintendent and or appropriate staff members for response. Is there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment at this time? I don't see anyone show their hand to express an interest in speaking. Ms. Vanessa, do we have any submissions via text?
There are no written submissions.
Okay, thank you. So with that, the board is now will recess the closed session. So we'll start with agenda item 4.01, and let me read the disclaimer here. Welcome to the regular board meeting on September 3rd. Any member or person in the public may address the board on any item on the agenda. Please be noted that all meetings are recorded. All regular and special board meetings of the Board of Trustees are streamed live on meeting nights and also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district YouTube channel listed on the district webpage. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent or appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation in this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda on the district website. Members of the public may submit public comment online by accessing the form on the district homepage at www.ESUHSD.org or submit via text at 831-524-5100. Please limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. So we'll continue with the adoption of the agenda. So 5.01 is when the superintendent or board member may request that items be removed from the agenda for consideration or carried to a future board meeting for consideration or action. So do we have any request for items to be removed for future agenda items, or do we have a motion to just adopt the agenda? So I don't see any requests from board members. We will go ahead and adopt the agenda. Next is items number 6, which usually have the board recognition, board special recognitions, and we don't have anything in this item right now. Number 7, student board liaison update. Bruce Nguyen, who is a student governing board representative. Bruce, do you have anything you want to update the board on?
Yes. So I do have a few updates. I'm happy to talk about the Student Governing Board activities from the meeting held on August 31st, 2020. I would like to reiterate the goals and plans for SGB this year, which includes diversifying SGB, student voice, and working with the YWCA to provide sexual education. In regards to the student voice, we would like to announce that schools are conducting their Student Governing Board elections to freshman representatives. We expect each school site to send their electees by the end of this month in order to have a full and diverse student office. The Student Governing Board is intending to launch the Diversity Task Force and appoint certain community members across different organizations, such as the Black Student Union, Californians for Justice, Latino Student Union, and many more. This program will be able to inform the district on certain risk groups and provide recommendations on helping them. SGB and other community members are also participating in voicing out their opinions on reopening school and for the curriculum for ethnic studies. We are officially launching the sexual education and intervention program with YWCA this month to directly help youth and students across the district. There will be emails and informational flyers sent out to students who are interested in learning more about how to be aware of common problems concerning young adults. As a witness to silent victims in my community, I believe this is the first step in helping aid them. And with these efforts, we hope to reach out to all youth with our new social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we have delegated several SGB members to facilitate the movement of information from the district to the community. That concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Next on the agenda is the special order of business. This is when superintendent or board member may request that items be considered, discussed, or act out of order as indicated on the agenda per schedule. Do we have any requests from board members to have any items be removed or be act out of order? I don't see or hear any requests, so we'll continue with our next agenda item, which is a presentation on school site progress and program highlights. We're gonna have a pleasure of a presentation from our principal from Overfeld High School, Mr. Vito Chiala.
Good evening, everybody. Vito Chiala, principal of Overfeld High School. Board Superintendent, Eastside community, it is an honor to be able to do this. I totally enjoyed preparing the presentation for you and being able to talk about Overfeld. It's a little bit long, and so I'm going to try and stay concise while still doing justice to the work that the Overfeld community is doing. And we'll just start with the equitable Eastside communities and how what we're doing across Eastside to make sure that all students are welcomed as they are, that their strengths and area of growth are known and supported, that we're positively responding to the whole human that the student is, not just their academic needs, but also their social, emotional, and wellness needs. And then that we are giving them a rigorous curriculum by engaging them in tasks, DOK 3 and above. That is what you're going to hear throughout the presentation about Overfeld. It is part of what we are trying to accomplish throughout Eastside, and it is going to happen throughout Overfeld. The first slide here is about our enrollment, and what you will see, and briefly in the beginning, just kind of talk about who we are at Overfeld right now. And you can see the enrollment trend that really over the last 10 years, when our enrollment first dropped, we were sitting in the 16 to 1800 range, and over the last 10 years have really stabilized between 1400 and 1500 students. And recognizing that every single one of those students is choosing to be here. Students have the option to go to other schools. They have the option to choose from any number of charters, and the students that are here are selecting Overfeld and staying at Overfeld. And so although our enrollment is hovering between 1,400 and 1,500, we know we're working hard to keep our kids here with us. One comment I would want to say about that, and you'll see that little red mark there on 2019, that's about 1,500, is because to understand the full story of the enrollment at Overfelt, you have to understand that last year, we actually enrolled 1,503 students, even though our actual enrollment was 1,388. After the first day of school, exactly 178 students enrolled, and that was after school started. Another 125 students left. And so just understanding that being in a community like where Overfelt is located means a lot of students coming and going. And so we're holding on to them as tightly as we can, also knowing that there are several things that happen in their lives that influence their ability to stay with us for all 4 years. Next slide, please. And this is just a breakdown of our enrollment by ethnicity. And you can see that we are predominantly a Latino school. In my time at Overfelt, I have seen us increase from a 60% Latino school to an 84% Latino school. And you can see how that compares to the enrollment across the East Side. That being said, we value the diversity that we have, and the diversity within the Latino culture is something that we cherish as well. Next slide, please. Now, this is another one that's really interesting, is just understanding how many of our students start school not understanding English, having English as a second language, and also understanding how many of them are still developing their English skills while they are here. More than 1/4 of our students are still designated as English language learners, and important subset of that are our newcomers. This year already, we have 108 newcomers at Overfelt. That's students who have been in the country for 5 years or less. Last year, we had 138 total, so we're expecting 30 or 40 more to join us as the year moves along. Understanding that within the larger context of ELL students, we have those who have been working hard to gain English proficiency over many years and those who have just been in the country a short time. I do want to note that on the East Side slide, when I pulled that off the Department of Education website, that is all of East Side and includes our charter schools. That's why that enrollment number is 26,000 as opposed to 22,500, which is what it would be if we reduce the charter schools. Also knowing that our English only population goes up and our English language learner population goes down as a district when we eliminate the charter schools. Next one, please. And then a little bit more about who we are as demographics, knowing that we are focused on serving our foster youth and our homeless youth, especially this year, a tremendous amount of outreach to those students to really try and help make sure that they are served in accessing education. You can see our migrant education numbers. I'll focus in a little bit on our students with disabilities. You can see that last year our enrollment was 186. We are at 205 students with IEPs this year. That's over 14%. That number is tending to grow. And so that's a significant portion of our population and students that we know need extra care and that we have to take care of. 24 of those students are in a specialized program in our ID program. The remainder of those, we're working hard to meet our vision of graduating ready for college and career. Socioeconomically disadvantaged, that's 85.4%. And I'm sure you know that number is achieved by students completing the free and reduced lunch form, which means that number is probably an approximation. We have been as high as 92%, and that has a whole lot to do with the barriers that families face when wanting or choosing to fill out the free and reduced lunch form. Some of those economic and others. One final thing before we move on from that one is just that we understand that the demographics that we've shared really present challenges that we have to be aware of, but it's also really important, and the reason I show you that picture is it doesn't define the beauty, the strength, the potential of our community. And so these are things we have to prepare for. This does not limit who we serve. Our students come with so many strengths and so many abilities that we recognize inherently. Okay, thank you. All right, so this is our vision, and this is a vision that if you attended an Overfelt staff meeting, you would see this every single time. It's something we developed together as a community, and the idea is that we want our students to graduate ready for college and careers, but we also really wanted to decide what that means for Overfelt. And what that means is that students who graduate will have the critical thinking, but they'll also have the creative thinking, and that's that idea that they can bring their diverse backgrounds into Silicon Valley or into college, not having to change who they are or lose who they are, but being able to use that as a creative advantage when they're in communities or in populations that maybe didn't grow up the way they did. And then of course, we know our students have to have resilience to survive, and they need to bring that same resilience into the classroom to succeed both here and beyond. That gets students to and through college. When we talk to parents about what they want us to do with their kids, that's what they say. They're like, get my student to college, get them through college. Next, please. And then this is something new. These are values that we developed through our MTSS process, and they're what we call our shared values. Overfelt Rises is the acronym, but these weren't just developed by teachers. They were developed by teachers and by students. Students came together and defined their values, and the adults came together and defined their values. And then we had an intersection where we said, what can we agree on are going to be the values for our school? And I really do feel like as this year, especially as 2020 has shown us all that it has shown us, these values have really helped us to identify who we are, and we have relied on them more and more. And so that idea of us being relationship-centered, that we develop and sustain positive and supportive relationships with each other. That's students with students, staff with staff, and staff with students and families. Integrity, it's an interesting one, and it's do the right thing even when no one is looking. And our staff and students both really define the right thing as living the other values. Probably the one that resonates the most with our community is solidarity. Everybody really wants to stand together and support each other regardless of what they're facing. Engagement, that's actively engaging, but not just in school, but in the growth of ourselves, our school, and our community, and that's for everybody in our community. And then safety, knowing we have to take responsibility for each other's safety, that's physical and emotional. And before we move from there, the idea is not that these are values that we always live, they're aspirational values for us. Students want to be there, we want to be there, but we know at times, especially with kids, they're like, well, he's not always standing with me. But we aspire to do that. And this year more than ever, we've had to hold on to those aspirations. On the next slide, you will see some of the student groups from our Student Senate who were working together to develop these values. And so our Student Senate met once a month for 2 hours. And first they developed the values, they developed a presentation for their students to share those values school-wide, and have really done a lot of work around creating common language for them and for our teachers, knowing the values were shared. And I will tell you one thing that the students really like is that expectations aren't just on what students are going to be expected to do, but also what students can expect from their teachers. And they really liked this idea of the expectations going both ways and the common assurances going both ways. You want me to show up on time and work hard, and I want the same thing from you. And so that was really great. And I feel like we were really moving pretty good. Next slide, please. And that really was part of our MTSS Tier 1 work. And we're an MTSS Tier 1 school, which means we started our work last year. Our guiding coalition is what we named our MTSS Tier 1 team. And I'll share the theory of action with you because I think it really is defined by those values as well. Our theory of action is that when we work in solidarity with strength and purpose, we will mobilize students, staff, and families whose humanity is valued for its potential and power to make a positive impact on local and global communities. Our guiding coalition or our Tier 1 team has 2 administrators, 10 certificated staff members, a classified staff member, 3 students, and 3 parents. And you can see a subgroup of us there meeting together to plan our bigger meeting. The reason I had to take that picture is the students were getting an absence call and their parents didn't believe they were in a meeting with us, so we had to send that one in. And that was a great moment because it's not very often that we get to sit at the table together without masks on. So I cherish that one as well. And one of the big pieces of work that we have been working on, and we just completed 3 years of WASC. We're going to do an interim review this year. And one of the things we really worked on was this idea of WASC Goal 1. It's our big thing of aligning what we teach in our classes across multiple teachers and between grade levels. Making sure not only that it's Common Core and DOK3 and student-centered, but that there is some common expectations shared across teachers. We want to be able to make the promise to our parents and to our students and to our families that it doesn't matter which teacher you have, you're going to receive the same quality of education, the same quality of learning, the same quality of support. And right now, as we know, it's really hard to make that assurance to our families because teachers have had a lot of freedom to do whatever they want. And we want to preserve the freedom and the artistry of the teachers and at the same time, make sure that the outcomes are aligned. A big part of that is developing common assessments at the end of every 6 weeks that teachers will review in collaboration and then use that to design their in-class interventions and design their instruction going forward. We've spent a lot of work on that. We really made some progress to the point where we do have common assessments across all of our shared courses. And that's coming in really handy now as we move into what happened next. Because this was the work that we were doing last year. And then on the next slide, 2020 happened. And where we were really feeling like we were making progress and moving ahead. And the next thing you know, we have this pandemic and it's March 13th and we're closing schools and we don't know when they're going to reopen. And more importantly than just the closing of schools is what we saw in our zip codes in the east side of San Jose, 95122 being one of the hardest hit, with COVID really highlighting the inequities that exist in our society, like highlighting it in a way that was undeniable and impossible to ignore, with the families on east side either needing to go to work or not being able to afford food, with students struggling to connect and struggling to get online. And all of that was before the murder of George Floyd and the racial uprising that followed on top of that, exacerbated by that clearly, because there was clearly already a highlight of the inequity in our society, the fact about who is an essential worker and the amount of the spread of COVID and the number of deaths in the East Side community and the Overfelt community in particular really took a toll on our students, our families, and our staff. And so we look at this though as a moment, right? As a historical moment that can't be ignored, but also as a disruption to all of these systems that are not working right now. And we have really positioned ourselves or tried to think of ourselves as taking this disruption to the system, this disruption to the status quo that is needed to make change anyway, has already happened. The discomfort that comes from changing the way we always do things is already in place. Like the pandemic did that for us. The question was really about how are we going to respond? How are we going to come out of this? Are we going to recreate the same inequitable systems? Are we going to use this as an opportunity to reimagine and to recreate, reinvent the way we do schools? Now, I know that racial reckoning and that idea of recreating and reimagining is happening across the country and across all of our systems. And at the same time, we also understood that at Overfelt, we had to take ownership of the parts that we could control ourselves. And it's where we really started working on becoming an anti-racist school. And so that's work started this summer, where we did quite a bit of reading. We met several times over the summer, open to all staff, met with students and met with parents. And we have been using as our framework or as our series of definitions, the work by Ibram X. Kendi. And these two quotes really help clarify what we mean when we say we want to be an anti-racist school. And so if you'll allow me to, I'll just read that. An anti-racist policy is any measure that produces or sustains racial equity between racial groups. By policy, I mean written and unwritten laws, rules, procedures, processes, regulations, and guidelines that govern people. There is no such thing as a non-racist or a race-neutral policy. every policy in every institution, in every community, in every nation is producing or sustaining either racial inequity or equity between racial groups. For us, that allows us to look at everything we do within our institution as either promoting equity, sustaining equity, or promoting or sustaining inequity. And it gives us a great lens to look at how we work, and not just at the systemic level of the whole school, but for teachers to look at their own practices. The next part really helps us to personalize the work in a way that is accessible to all. And that's that idea that racist and anti-racist are like peelable name tags that are placed and replaced on what someone is doing or not doing, supporting or expressing in each moment. They're not permanent tattoos. No one becomes a racist or an anti-racist. We can only strive to be one or the other. And that idea allows us to embrace that wherever we are in our process of becoming an anti-racist. Important as I talk about this story to understand that we didn't just drop this on people out of nowhere. We've been doing equity work for a long time, and equity has become a commonly used word that sometimes doesn't have the power of saying anti-racist, which is a loaded word, and really gets people's attention. But there's a lot of foundational work that has been done, and I'll go through these quickly if I can. One of the things that we've done for many years is trying to open access and remove barriers to academics. And that starts with our academy system, with every single student being in an academy where a group of adults works with a group of young people over the course of multiple years. Our summer bridge program that we call CSI that accelerates students starting their very first summer. So they don't just come into Overfelt and learn how to be good students. They also start school ahead with 10 A through G credits before they're even freshmen. And then just opening access to all those upper level courses, whether that be AP or upper level math or upper level science, removing the barriers and making sure the students can access those based on choice, and creating a culture that makes them want to make that choice. Removing barriers around things like AP or PSAT or SAT or college applications, where we are funding those for students. For AP, PSAT, and SAT, if you're a student at Overfelt, you haven't had to pay for those. If we're encouraging you to take them and we're saying you need these to meet our vision, then we're finding a way to fund those. We're also finding a way to fund college applications and college access with some partners who contribute scholarships for students, so that we can make sure that they're able to apply to the colleges that they want to attend, and opening that access. And then really importantly, you saw what a large percentage of Overfelt have IEPs, making sure that we're trying our best to mainstream those students with support so that they can access A through G, opening access to them to have the same outcomes as every student at Overfelt. We've made significant work and progress in shifting discipline practice supporting behaviors. This is really one of the places where the equitable communities lives. We meet students where they are. They may get a behavior referral for doing something that wasn't contributing to their education, but we're going to meet them where they are. We're going to honor their strengths while we're recognizing those areas for growth, and we're going to respond positively. And because of that, we've dramatically reduced our suspension and all but eliminated our contact with law enforcement. And we've really replaced that with a reflective process, a process of building communication between students, teachers, often with the support of an advisor, and then restorative practices when there has been harm done. Really working that way in discipline. And then we are beginning our third year of ethnic studies for all freshmen. We don't want another student to graduate from Overfelt saying, I met the A through G and I took all my history classes and I never learned anything about my people or who I am. And so making sure we're building that in, knowing that one course is not enough to make us an anti-racist school, but it forms a nice foundation for students, and really trying to be an ethnic studies school as well throughout the curriculum. And that's developing in our partnership with San Jose State's Ethnic Studies Residency, where they are preparing new teachers with an ethnic studies lens. You could be a math or an English or a science teacher and have an ethnic studies lens as you come in, and we're going to host their residency here, and they're working really closely with our ethnic studies teachers. And then the hard part, so what do we do? What does that mean, become an anti-racist school? And we are wanting to take action now, also knowing that making these moves requires patience. Understanding that several people in our community are like, we've suffered for 400 years, let's do this tomorrow. And other people are like, wait, I don't know how to do it, you need to help me. And so really understanding that at the fundamental level, becoming an anti-racist school deals with us personally, us as educators and us as leaders, and having to address that for people where they are, making sure that we're also supporting them and where they need to go. But what we're doing right now for students with teachers in the classroom is centering student experience and activating student voice. We know that in distance learning, we can't just force students to comply. So we're really building on their current experiences, creating authentic community, really trying to create healing-centered classroom spaces where teachers and students are working together to create the community, to create the learning outcomes. That shifts right into our curriculum and instructional shifts, where we have told people over and over, cover less, do less, go deeper, maintain the rigor, do it through DOK3, increase the relevance, increase the choice, allow students to have input into what they're learning. And those shifts take time, but those shifts are what we need to do to make distance learning sustainable for students and for ourselves, also makes it anti-racist. And then the big one, and we've started this discussion, is the shift in grading, where we're trying to get away from grading for compliance, but really moving towards grading to measure skills and learning, and providing students multiple opportunities to demonstrate that they are learning and that they're growing. Something that's humane, something that is compassionate, but that is also grading, knowing that we are going to have to work in the A through F system. Can we do that in a humane and compassionate way that allows for students to grow? I think it's important to also note this partnership, because it's a profound partnership that's starting this year and really also talks about how we open access. And so we have a partnership with the city of San Jose and with Students Rising Above to provide San Jose Aspires to every Overfelt student in the class of 2024. So that's all of our current freshmen. Those students will earn scholarship awards from completing college and readiness tasks. So by doing the things that we know students do to get ready for college, that's get a good GPA, meet the A through G, complete their FAFSA, apply to colleges. But also those other things that we know successful students do, like join clubs, play sports, participate in leadership, do community service, get work experience, all those other things, they will actually earn scholarship money for doing those things. So they will get awarded for doing those things. And every member of the Overfelt class of 2024 has the potential to earn up to $5,000 in scholarships by graduation. Our students in CSI and our summer bridge program this summer already earned up to $500. It's important for us when we talk about how this ties into the work we're doing is to understand that when we're preparing students for college, we know we have to prepare them academically. And we also know that we have to prepare them to have that college going mindset and that belief that when they get to college, they belong there and that they can succeed, not by assimilating, but by being who they are and bringing their true selves to that space. And then there's always the part that we struggle with is the financial part. And so we may prepare them in every other way, and then they're headed off to their four-year university and realize they can't afford it. And so I really am excited by this partnership with the city of San Jose in particular for finding the money to make sure that students who do all of those right things can take that $5,000 into their first year of college. All right. And so how are we doing with all of that? And it's hard to not look at these graphs and see messy progress. Our graduation rates have slowly but steadily increased. I do want to point out that I included data for our Asian students, but in a graduating class, that's typically 25 to 30 students. So just a few students one way or the other really can create some shifts. But as we look at the gaps between our Latino students and our Asian students, they continue to exist, and we're continuing to work on closing those. And when we look at our A through G rate, you'll see the same thing with our students who are Asian students, and with the gap closing much tighter there with our Latino students on the A through G. also understanding that our Asian Latino students are all part of the Overfelt community and all facing very similar struggles in their pathway to college. But once again, slow but messy work towards meeting the A through G and through meeting graduation rates. In terms of college enrollment, what we see, these are students who are actually in college, and on the left side, what we see is that we are at about 70% of our students are actually attending college the year after they graduate, and close to 70% of our Latino students are attending college. The chart on the right is the number of students. And so although we see sort of, it looks like 2014 was this peak year, and then we dropped off a little bit and we're starting to recover that when we look at the percentage. When we actually look at the numbers, what we see is our total number of students was never higher than 2018 with the total number of students in college, because as our percentage of graduates grows, our percentage of students going to college doesn't grow as much, but the numbers really have. And so we have huge numbers of students attending college, also noting the dip in 2019 and knowing that this is messy work that we have to keep doing. I know there's a lot of data and there's a lot to talk about, but it didn't seem right to talk about student voice and then not include any of their feedback. And so we did want to include the feedback from Panorama. This is last year's their data about the climate survey. And you can see that students, for the most part, are feeling like the climate is positive, increasing over time, and sitting at a place that is fairly good. I'll highlight one of those on the next slide, which is the climate support for academic learning. And these are the actual questions and how students answered them. And what we really see is some really favorable response about how our students feel about the adults and the work they do, and the teachers. That idea of teachers giving students an opportunity to take place in classroom discussion or promoting academic success for all students. And so we're proud of that work. And then we also know we continue to have work to do. And so if we look at that next slide, we'll see on the SEL survey, students' self-efficacy. And this is a really tricky one. This is work that is very critical to us, where our students still aren't feeling completely comfortable in their classes here or comfortable with academic learning, and understanding that's a big part of that is their mindset, and us having to help them understand that they can be who they are and that they can take their strengths and that those are relevant strengths and that they don't have to change that. And so we're trying to build confidence in our students that they can do the work they need to do. And this is one that's really important to us as we try to measure our students' own belief in their own ability to succeed in school, because believing in succeeding in school at Overfelt will translate into their belief that they can succeed in school at the next level. I include this one because I want to highlight one of the places where we really need to continue to grow. I've talked about our students with disabilities or students with IEPs and their the large percentage and our need to include them in our pathways towards A through G and towards graduation. And if you look on the left, you'll see that not that we're happy with 18.4% of the grades at Overfelt being Fs or 8.3% being Ds, but we're really unhappy with the gap that is being faced by our students with IEPs in that grading area, knowing that we need to do better there to make sure students, when they're accessing those classes, are being successful, that their IEPs are being implemented, that they're being implemented with integrity, that they're not getting denied the rigor, but that they are getting the support they need to access the rigor. And so on the next slide. So clearly working with students with IEPs is one of our areas for growth. And we have been implementing a plan to increase access and success for students by placing those in A through G classes, but also making sure we're embedding support. So we've had co-taught classes where an educational specialist and a general ed teacher work together. This year we have classes in biology and chemistry, opening the access through the science pathway for those students who need extra support. Number two is a experiment this year. where we're providing educational specialist support for general education teachers in key courses, not just co-teaching, but we have an educational specialist supporting 3 periods of math throughout the day. That's not 3 math classes. That's pushing into Math 1 and Math 2 classes throughout the school day. We have one working in 2 periods of English, 2 periods of social science, predominantly focused in the ethnic studies classes, and 1 period of science for students who are mainstream, not in the biology or chemistry. So these educational specialists are pushing in, supporting kids in the classroom, and helping teachers understand how to meet the needs of the IEP by providing the necessary interventions that students need when they need it. They're not going in and singling out students with IEPs. Instead, they're really working with whole groups of students who are struggling, but also making sure that the teachers are informed. And then that last one, it looks like the number's off a little bit, is that every single one of our educational specialists has a study skills case management course. And so now if a student is taking 6 mainstream classes and they start to struggle, rather than pull them out of the mainstream classes where they won't get A through G access and put them into specialized classes, we're pulling them out of maybe one of those classes and putting them in a case management course. And that case manager will then support them with the other classes. You can see the metrics that we know we need to do. We need to close our gaps on graduation and on A through G completion, and especially on college and career. And so we're really hoping, hoping is the wrong word, we're really working hard to make sure that students who are in those classes are getting the support they need when they need it. We're doing that right now in distance learning, and I can only imagine it's going to be more effective when we're actually in person again. The one other area of growth I wanted to highlight is our English language learners, with a real emphasis on our newcomers, our newest arriving students. And so this year we have a full implementation of our EL Academy. The EL Academy has a coordinator and a dedicated counselor. They have a team of teachers and a sequence of A through G classes that goes, for instance, in science, it's biology, chemistry, and physics, all the way through the 4 years of social science and math up to Math 3. The idea is that students who are new to the country should still be able to access our A through G pathway. And so we see the same gaps there, and we know that that's another area of emphasis. That's for our long-term ELs, but also for our newcomers, knowing that we want them to be able to access the outcomes. And so when I think about the supports we need to do the work, like the MTSS work has been fantastic. It's really helping us at the tier 1 level, which is where we need to meet students. We don't have the capacity to do tier 2 and tier 3 supports for the large numbers of students that could use it. What we really have to do is get better at using our collective efficacy as a staff, working together to create common assurances to make sure students are succeeding at tier 1 before we move them into tier 2. And so that has been really helpful. And then the only other thing is just continue partner in our work and note those opportunities for support. I really appreciate it when our district partners look at what we're doing and say, hey, you might want to think about this, or you might want to do that. Jump in and help us. Like, we love the partnership and the assistance. And I have one more slide, because I didn't want to leave you without looking what I saw when I came to school today, which is a building that's not open yet, but it's beautiful. It's pretty amazing. And so knowing that we're going to be moving into that building within the next 3 months or so, knowing that students will be in new art classrooms, new music classrooms, a new theater, a new front office, a new parent center. It's, I can't wait to show you. It's amazing.
Beautiful. Okay, so board members, superintendent, any comments, questions for Mr. Kiala?
Just one proud royal here, board member Herrera. My video is not working, but I really have felt for the longest time, Principal Kiala, that while you bring such wholeheartedness to working with this community and serving this community, and we're so fortunate. I'm a graduate from 1967. That was in the last century, but it's just great to hear this report. I really feel like there's a hands-on, your leadership and your leadership team It really feels like these families couldn't be more blessed to have this kind of educational leadership at Overfeld High School. So just count me one proud Royal. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Member.
Member Chavez?
You know, I might not be a royal, I'm a proud warrior, but you had my little brother. And he still talks about your leadership. And, you know, I've seen it myself when I've gone to the school and visited and engaged with the students. It's been my favorite part of visiting schools. I had two things to say. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I know my internet is really in and out. So one, Vito, next year when you come back and share what has Overfeld been up to. What do you hope to be true? You have a lot of amazing initiatives happening, and I'm curious to know, like, what are those goals, milestones that you said, you know, that you would say, you know what, Lorena or board or community, this is one of my goals that is top of mind that I'd like to share. I don't know if you can think of something that comes to mind as you hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always have these goals of increasing A through G and increasing college access and college readiness. But I think fundamentally, I would love to see us really make that shift towards being anti-racist, towards really creating authentic communities where there isn't this power structure between teachers and school staff and parents and families. And so if we're really, and I believe we'll be able to measure that in the metrics of grades and graduation and A through G. But fundamentally, if we can make progress in a year where I feel like we've eliminated a lot of those institutional barriers to students succeeding, not just at the school level, but, you know, teachers have power in their individual classrooms. And so changing the institution, what's happening in the classrooms, without losing a single student or a single teacher. I want to keep the staff and the team we have. We have an amazing group of people, but really to get them to be able to do this work with kids instead of to kids.
I love that. I love that. And you know, something that has been really top of mind for me are the white structures that we have in place, right? Sometimes we value quantitative data over qualitative data, which is the narrative, the experiences. So I'm really excited to see the outcomes, to hear about the outcomes via the qualitative experience, the qualitative data. That is really important and will really show progress. You know, when I was going through the slides before you did your presentation, I saw that book and I got so excited. It reminded me of a conversation I had with Cortese this past weekend. We were talking about readings and our growth as humans, and especially how we've been tested and really been blessed. I say blessed to be put in uncomfortable situations. I think it's so important for us to be put in uncomfortable situations. And you noted COVID did that to us, but I still think that there is room to get uncomfortable and we need to push each other to get to that place. It is our responsibility as leaders in education. And it starts with modeling and doing that ourselves, right? And as I've been doing a lot of reflection at another level these past few months, man, I've gotten uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough. And I mentioned this book to board member Cortese, and I said, you have to read it. I started listening it to an Audible because I'm running behind these kids half of the day. The other half of the day, I try to work and do other things. But this work is really important. And so I actually want to take a moment to give the board an invitation or send an invitation to the board. We have a board retreat coming up. I want to say 9th, sometime later this month, for us to read
19th.
this book, the 19th, to read this book and share our reflections in the board retreat and have that be part of the content that we engage in. An invitation to start getting a little bit more uncomfortable.
Say the name of the book again, please.
Can we
How to
put
be-
up the slide?
I have, yeah, I mean, I can grab one.
I'll send it off.
Yeah. How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm holding it in my hand right now.
There
Okay,
it is there. Cool, awesome. Thank you, Vito.
Thank you.
Board Member Cortese, you have your hand up, and then Board Member.
Yes, yes, I do. Yeah, I really enjoyed your presentation. You know, because I enjoy your leadership and your way of being with students is just, yeah, you're clearly doing what you're put on earth to do. It's beautiful to watch. Can we go back to slide 14? So this slide was music to my ears. You know, when you're talking about, you know, meeting students where they are, shifting discipline practices to becoming more reflective, more restorative. I mean, that's really what inspired me to get on the board is how can we, because, you know, you and I have done work together around supporting youth and in practices around restorative justice, you know, cleaning up their word, you know, cleaning up when they've broken their integrity. And I think that has such a powerful place in our schools, and I love to see that that's happening. And I also want to acknowledge that Overfelt was among the first of a couple of schools, I think, that just blew open the doors for AP for all students. And I really acknowledge you for that work. And I'd love to know a little more about how it's going. It's been a few years now, right? About 4 or 5 years. What kind of results are you seeing, and what's it take to support the students in being successful in those classes without really having had the maybe background orientation to, you know, see themselves in those classes? Like, what's it taken to get them in there?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been 12 years. So it's been
Wow.
it's been a really long time since we started doing this, and we've continued to see growth and then really plateaued over the last 5 years. We don't need to add more AP to our students. What we need to do is continue to encourage students. It's really interesting. It's one of these things I'm realizing the more time I'm here is that the fights that we won before, we have to keep winning, because the students are coming in really similar to the way they always have, and to build on top of what we've already done is really hard because we have to keep earning those same gains. It's interesting how we've evolved. Students take AP in general. 75% of the graduates, 70 to 75% of the graduates have completed an AP course. Most important to us is completing an AP course before you graduate, taking at least one before you graduate. I don't put much value on AP success rates and percentages, because as soon as you start pushing, you have to pass this test, teachers start saying, well, my rates are going to look bad if you make me take all these kids. And we really want to de-emphasize the test and really emphasize the rigor in the class. And by succeeding in the rigorous class, what it does to the mindset. And so we've really done that. I would say our next step in our evolution is to go away from AP and really go into dual enrollment, where we feel like students can have more success with both outcomes. Because the test is not always accessible, even, I mean, although we've been doing better and better with the tests in certain subject areas, particularly math, dual enrollment is so much more accessible for students and benefits them on the credit side and on the grade side.
Okay, that's awesome. And I agree with you. You know, it is, I can clearly see the benefit to the mindset as being like the most powerful, way more powerful than did you get a 4 in an AP test or something.
Exactly.
I also really want to acknowledge the work you're doing around ethnic studies and realizing that that's not just a course, but that, and I think this is really for our whole district, is how can we weave more of an inclusive focus throughout our whole curriculum, you know, so that, you know, even in our math curriculum, the names you see in math problems are, you know, as much Jose and Tuan as Bob and Susie, right? And that the books we're reading in English are as much, you know, Asian authors as you know, classic American authors or African American authors, or you know, that there's just a diversity of views presented in even these traditional classes, right? I mean, in some ways, I think even I'd love to even see the name ethnic studies go away, because to me, it almost reinforces the dominant culture. Like, you've got this dominant culture, and then all the ethnicities. Well, it really, if we're talking about equity, that isn't it. It's like we're all, you know, but at least this is a step in that direction. So I really applaud the work you're doing. Thank you.
I would salute our ethnic studies team. The teachers that are doing this work are holding me accountable for making sure it's an authentic course too. Like, they are phenomenal.
Thank you, Board Member Lay.
Yes, I also want to echo the leadership of Principal Kiala, as well as administrator, teacher, and staff that bring Overfell to a new environment, new look, as well as the student academy and especially safety. I remember first time when I visit Overfell, I feel like somehow that I'm still afraid of gangster around the school. But with your leadership, Principal Kiara, you really make a big difference. And I know that every student now will come to Overfell will feel much more safe, and they feel much more comfortable, as well as the community participate into this event that school has provided, like a scholarship event. And I know that you spearhead with those scholarship event every year, and I love to attend it. I know that with the pandemic this year, I would not be able to do it, but I think that is really a highlight of the community, teachers, staff, administrator of Overfell will make a big difference, you know, for the Overfell. And I'm really support that. When I heard that your school becoming an anti-racist school, really the first time that I heard this, and I think it's very proud to know that a lot of effort that teachers and staff have been worked together, you know, with under your leadership. And I think it's one question I was gonna remember, that what type of academy training that you have in your Overfell, you know, like some of the school has engineering academy or health as you know, or art or whatever. So what type of academy that you provide for student at Overfell?
Yeah, we have 7 academies, but I'll just name the 3 that are career focused. One is multimedia, where students are working on digital and music production. One is engineering, and the third one is child development and education.
Wow. And which one has most, you know, student that engaged?
I can't answer that question without all the other ones getting mad at me.
Okay.
They're very competitive with each other.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, thank you for your work, and looking forward to visit school when the pandemic is over.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lin.
Superintendent, anything you want to add?
Well, I appreciate really the focus that is Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know why, of all nights, I'm having the biggest problem with Zoom. Vito, I appreciate all your work, and particularly just the work around equity and that lens. I've also started reading How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's a great book. And as we know, the challenge is the mindset of the adults in the system, and providing them a safe place, a safe container to grow. Because we all, you know, change is going to happen. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But growth is optional. And so if we create a safe place like the district tried to do, and I think we were very successful with implicit bias training, it's something that we can just continue to grow together, school by school, all across the district. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the attendee side, earlier I had a Sharon Cavallaro. You raised your hand earlier, but then you dropped it. I'm not sure if you're still interested in speaking. If not, you can. If you do, you can raise your hand again. If not, then we move on.
She communicated with me that she has no need to speak.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, before we move on, I want to say one last thing. One of the reasons why I think it's really important to start engaging in these uncomfortable conversations and, growing as leaders and community members is because of sometimes how we relay or communicate what is top of mind, and sometimes saying things that can offend other people. Right. And so I think there was some mention of gangsters or not feeling safe. That is not okay to be saying in regards to our students. I think it's really important that we think about how we refer to them, because we're here to support them, right? And have our deepest belief in them as humans and that they can grow. And so I just want to reiterate that I'm hoping that this will be part of our journey. And really want to call out that please, let's be thoughtful of how we refer and engage with each other, because that could have some unintended consequences.
Thank you. Okay, so we will now hold a public hearing, which is scheduled approximately at 6:20. It is now 7:25, regarding learning community continuity and attendance plan. The public testimony is now open. Calling once. Calling public speakers for the second time regarding this agenda item. Calling for the third time regarding testimony for learning continuity and attendance plan. There being no persons present who are interested in providing testimony, the public testimony portion of this item is now closed. We will continue with agenda item number 11.
We have 10
item number 10. Public members who would like to address the board on non-agendized item. I don't see anyone from
Board President Nguyen, I'm sorry. There was for the public hearing, there's a presentation that I need to make sure. Yeah, there's a presentation that I need to make sure that I share at this board meeting.
All right, let's do the presentation.
I will be brief.
Okay.
Is it this one?
No, the PowerPoint, sir. The one on the right, it's LCP board update. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, board members, SUPS Council, and members of the public. My name is Teresa Marquez, and I'm the Associate Superintendent for Educational Services. And part of our requirement this year with the Senate Bill 98 is to bring forth to our board meeting the learning continuity and attendance plan. And one of the key requirements is to hold a public hearing, which board president just announced, but also just to give an update as to the work of the plan, so that then you have information so that when the plan comes back at the board meeting on September 24th, you will have all the needed information to be able to take action on the plan. And so I'm bringing it back to the board as an update as part of the requirement of the Senate Bill 98. And so many of these slides will look familiar to you. I'll just give you a quick update. And one of the key pieces that I want to bring forth is that although this is very much just a compliance piece, the lens that we've chosen to take is one of how do we connect this to our overarching goal of building equitable Eastside communities. And so you can see the comparison from what the purpose of the plan is to the comparison of what we hope to build for Eastside. And you could see almost word for word, very similar language. And so the lens that we're choosing to take is one of connection and alignment as opposed to just compliance. You've seen this timeline before, and I just want to stress again to the board and to the public that we were given a short timeline to go through the process of the learning continuity and attendance plan. We received the template that was adopted on August 5th. And then we're having to submit it by September 30th to the county office. And so you can see the various requirements that have to be met, including stakeholder engagement sessions, which we've had, our meeting with our governing or advisory board, DAC-DLAC, which we've had. And then obviously today is the public hearing, and the plan will be brought forth, the final plan will be brought forth to the governing board on September 24th. Just a reminder of what the key components are. There's an expectation to respond to how we engage our stakeholders, what our plan is as we move forward for in-person instructional offerings, our work around the distance learning program, and then the other components, next slide, sir, include our responses or our work towards pupil learning loss, mental health and social emotional well-being, what we're doing to re-engage and outreach our students who aren't participating, and then our continued work to provide meals for our students. And so those were the key components that I shared with you at a previous board meeting. And the next few slides are just going to take you through the key components of the pieces as to how we've responded to these pieces. And so these are all the various, and it's not fully inclusive here on this slide, but it is fully inclusive on the actual document. But these are just some of the examples of how we've engaged with the various stakeholder groups in the development of not only this particular learning continuity and attendance plan, but also in the thinking of back in March or in the summer for our rethinking of how we were going to open up our school year. The next component is our in-person instructional offerings. As you've been made aware by the superintendent, we are looking at a phased approach. And so obviously right now, there is not an opportunity for us to offer in-person instruction as we are still on the state's COVID watch list. But we are working with the reopening task force to get to, at some point when it's deemed safe to do so, phase 3, which would be a hybrid approach which would include some in-person instruction. And the 3 essential questions that we're hoping to answer is, what are those conditions that should be in place for schools to reopen in a hybrid approach? What's the schedule that would best meet the needs while still maintaining those public health guidelines? And how are we going to ensure that once we have our in-person instruction that includes our students and our staff, how are we going to ensure that we're going to be able to maintain our community safe and follow all those health procedures? When it comes to distance learning, you've been receiving every board meeting an update on that, so this should look very familiar to you. Obviously, in terms of continuity of instruction, we've been able to offer the full spectrum of courses as we would if we were to have opened in person. We have core content courses as well as electives. You can see the snapshot of the schedule that we're following, which really has students doing live, interactive, synchronous instruction on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursday, Fridays with each of their periods, as well as an opportunity for them to engage in asynchronous or independent work, and then receive some tutorial support on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. In terms of access to devices and connectivity, we've distributed close to 4,000 hotspots, and I know there's more on the way for our students in need. We've issued close to 8,000 devices. And even during this time, we have been able to offer supervision for our most at need students that include our McKinney, Vento, and Foster, who are in need of a quiet space and or Wi-Fi access. Additionally, when we look at how we're monitoring our participation and progress, because we started 100% distance learning, we're doing synchronous block periods, as I mentioned, and we're taking attendance. Teachers are tracking completion of assignments using Schooloop or Google Classroom. And then just this week, we launched our participation log that's going to know weekly participation for students within our Infinite Campus student information system. You've seen this before. We've been able to respond to this particular component of the LCP by providing the work that we did around our professional development. And if you remember, we were able to hold over 100 sessions with more than 1,600 staff participating in those sessions. We've had to respond to how we were shifting staff roles and responsibilities. And so for us, because we have positions that are very dependent on students being physically on campus, we've been able to shift some of the roles and responsibilities of our advisors, librarians, and campus monitors to use them to conduct both outreach and supervision of our students. And then in particular, we've been able to support many of our students by not only making outreach phone calls, but we actually have some staff that is starting to do home visits, which include dropping off care packages that have been donated by various organizations, as well as dropping off notices and letters to attempt to re-engage them if we're finding that they are missing their sessions. And then of course, as mentioned, providing on-site supervision for space and Wi-Fi. And then when it comes to the pupil learning loss strategies, we were one of the few districts that still offered a complete summer school program to ensure that our students were able to recover any credits that may have been lost. Teachers really started off their year, not so much just off and running with their content, but not only did they start with building relationships and connections, but they started with review at the start of the school year. And then with our assessment and accountability team, our data team, they're going to continue to work on our warning system to note those students that have certain indicators that would allow us to be able to pull the information out to be able to target some interventions for students who, after the first grading period, may be earning a D or an F, or have a certain amount of absences, and or any behavioral referrals that may have surfaced even through a distance learning setting. In terms of our mental health and social emotional well-being, you're all well aware that we have social workers who continue to provide services, who continue to work very closely with our students who are referred. We have schools that are doing school-wide lessons around ensuring students' mental health and social and emotional well-being. And I think it's important to note that I know a lot of times we respond to this question by saying we have social workers who can support our students who are in need of mental health or social emotional support, but this is also being done day in and day out by our teachers. Our teachers are putting in place processes in their classes to do check-ins with students. They're really engaging and trying to build those relationships, even in a distance learning setting, because they're really trying to ensure that students, even though they're not in person, are getting what they need, not only academically, but their social and emotional well-being is being taken care of and addressed. And then finally, the last components are the outreach that we're providing for our students. And so our student services team has worked very hard to put together a tiered approach where we continue to use our automated calls through Infinite Campus, as well as text and email. That team is the team that's heading out and actually dropping off letters to homes where the student has reached a certain amount of absences, to make sure that we're connecting with them and trying to figure out why it is that they're not reporting to their courses, through, even if it's in a virtual setting, and trying to figure out what are those interventions that need to be in place. So we continue to use our systems that we've had in place, but just having to adjust a little bit, knowing that it's a distance learning setting, it's a virtual setting, but still trying to do as much outreach and as much support as we can, using both our Infinite Campus and our automated RAWE system that allows us to be able to provide notices, both via text, email, and an actual letter, postal letter. And then you're well aware of the fact that we continue to provide meals for our students. We actually are able to provide not only a lunch, but a supper at students at our various school sites. We've protected that lunch hour And so across the district, we've protected that 11:45 to 12:50 lunchtime, where students are able to have that break from their classes to go and pick up their grab and go lunch, as well as their supper. And so we've been able to do this since the closure of our school sites nonstop, even through the summer. So our child nutrition workers under the leadership of Julie Kasberger have done a great job of continuing to provide these meals for all of our students. And then finally, some next steps. Because we just had our community forums last week, and I've collected additional input, we'll need to compile the feedback and the input that has been received. There were actual written questions that our advisory group posed, and one of the requirements is that we respond to those questions in writing. And so we'll work on responding and posting those questions. We'll adjust the actual plan based on the feedback and input that was gathered, and then we'll prepare the plan to bring forth for a recommendation for adoption at our September 24th board meeting. And should it be adopted by this board, we'll be able to submit it on time by September 30th. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is a very thorough and well thought out continuation and attendance plan. If my board can give me the honor of asking a few questions first, I'm gonna ask you to have questions and comments as well. So, Associate Superintendent Marcus, I'm interested in hearing more about the warning system to target interventions. Can you talk more about it? What does it look like? What does that involve?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that question. Would you mind repeating it, please?
Yeah, the use of the warning system to target interventions.
Yes.
What does it look like?
So absolutely. So in our system, Illuminate, Kristen King has created a data pool that identifies students with certain indicators and gives them a coding that allows schools to say, okay, which student is at higher risk of not earning their credits by the end of the semester. But rather than waiting to the end of the semester, we're able to put it in place sooner. And so we can actually begin to put in place those interventions based on the data that is collected. So if it's a student that's on the high risk group because of attendance, then the intervention will be specific to the attendance component. If the student is on the list due to grades, then the intervention will have to match that particular data point. If it's a combination, then we know that it's a little bit deeper and there will have to be other interventions that are put in place for the student. And it could be something that is connected to whether it be mental health or social emotional, that we'll have to do a referral to whether it be a social worker or community-based organization. It'll depend on why the student is listed as a high risk based on the data system that our team has created.
So it could be anything. It could be academic, could be behavior, could be attendance, could be anything.
Correct, yes. And if it's all three, they get, you know, I'll use higher score, but they get a higher score, meaning they're at a higher risk. And so that student will, you know, be indicated, let's say at the top of the list, because there are a number of factors that have contributed to that student being marked as higher risk.
So, and I'm glad that you also have also included mental health and social and emotional well-being. So, I mean, during a normal school environment or situation, the students who are so-called being noticed or noted by a teacher by the way he or she might be experiencing some sort of depression or sad and so on or whatever, that teacher or whoever can make a referral. But in situation when they all stay home, participate in distance learning and all of those things, how do we then recognize the signs and able to refer those students that might need the service to the social workers or the counselors and so on?
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? Because we are not mandating our students to show their camera, and even if we did, you have a little box in front of you that you may not be able to get all the signs. But I think the importance of the work to be done is the attendance piece, right? So if we're noticing through other data points, whether it be lack of attendance, lack of submission of assignments, and then now that we've instituted the participation log, that we actually have other data points that sometimes are what we need to look at, because the depression manifests itself in lack of attendance. The depression may manifest itself in lack of submission of assignments. The anxiety may represent itself in lack of, coming to the tutorial that's been, specifically selected for the students. So because we know those are the data points that we're able to collect, we're really being conscious about pulling those data points to ensure that we're following up with the students. And so advisors are doing a lot more outreach based on the data that is pulled, whether it's attendance, and now, like I said, the participation log that we've just instituted. And so those are some key data points that we can use. But I know that I can tell you that the referrals continue to come through. Because I receive them on a daily basis. And so teachers are still being able to notice whether it's because they see something or a student has written something to them. And also in parents reporting, right? We have the referrals or the request for parent assistance that we continue to provide. It's a live link on our website that parents can access, and they can request if they're noticing something. So we still have means by which to collect information to be able to make that referral.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have board member Chavez raise her hand first, and then board member Cortese.
Never put it down.
Oh, I forgot to put that.
My question is, so we don't require the students to turn on their cameras. And I'm not advocating that we do. I'm just curious, is there some, what's the rationale, or is there a legal issue or civil rights issue, or what's the reason for?
Not necessarily, I wouldn't say illegal. I'll leave that to Rogelio, but I'll just respond from just the overarching factors that go into it. We didn't want to mandate it because we didn't want that to become a point of contention between students and staff, because the reasoning behind not showing your camera could be bandwidth. Zoom video requires a whole lot of bandwidth from your internet and even just your operating system. And so if you have siblings who are also using the same internet, that could cause problem. And so it's either I engage without my camera or I don't engage at all, because I'm losing the ability to be able to engage because I have to have my camera on. So that was one of the reasons, is to protect that bandwidth, knowing that our students' level of internet may differ. The other piece is that some of our students may be home insecure. They may be staying in a garage, in a couch, whatever it may be. And so they may not want to, show that. And although virtual backgrounds are possible, they still may feel uncomfortable with that particular situation. There was recently an article, and I'm forgetting which of the newspapers, that talked about particularly this point, and some of the points they made about not mandating the video is that when you're in Zoom, you could also pin videos, right? Which means there's a focus on you, and some students may not want to have someone just constantly staring at them if it is something that they can be pinned, and just the level of insecurity and anxiety that is raised because of, how you look still on the video. And so there's, a number of different reasons, but those are some that we decided why we would not mandate it.
Great. I mean, thank you for bringing all those to my awareness. That's really great to know. Thank you.
Don, I have a question for Teresa, that do we still allow this after-school program during the pandemic to support the student behind?
Yeah, so we still have partnership with our Goodwill Assets program, but all their activities have shifted to virtual. settings. And so, they continue to work within the guidelines as per public health, given right that we can't have the space for the in-person instruction for the tutoring, but they still are partnering with us. And then additionally, we're actually working to try to identify online on-demand tutoring service to provide students that additional support across the board with other subjects. So we're in the works of investigating which is the best organization to go with that.
Oh, that's excellent. I just want to go back to the issue that Member Patty Cotizzi has raised about the camera. So if the student will not use the camera, from the computer, but can they still participate, like raise their hand or participate in whichever way in the classroom?
Yes, they can. So they can use all those same icons. They have the raise hand icon, they have the chat. And I have to tell you, our teachers have been absolutely phenomenal about just really letting go of that and finding other creative ways of making sure that students are engaged. Some teachers do a quick every 10 minutes check-in through a Google form. And so they'll link the Google form, the kid will have to submit it. They'll leave it open for about, 5 to 10 minutes to make sure the kid is there. They'll pose a question and the kid will have to submit a response. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that our teachers are being really innovative about how to ensure that students continue to be engaged.
Well, thank you, teachers, as well as administrator. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board members?
Ms. Chavez?
My hand is still up.
Yeah, she raised it.
I guess I had to say, Teresa, thank you for the thorough presentation. I really appreciate the detail and the context, how you went into each subsection. One of the questions I had you answered, which was like, I'm curious to see what parents have to say or what the feedback is, but I heard that that's going to be brought back later. So I'm excited to dig into that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Bruce, student governing board member, you have questions or comment?
Yeah, so regarding the webcam policy of turning on your cameras, are teachers allowed to recommend like turning on your camera, or are they also allowed to like negatively, are there consequences for not turning on your camera for classrooms?
No, there shouldn't be, because we've put it out, like I said, right, that we cannot mandate students to show their camera. What we have told teacher is, build that relationship like you would in your classroom. And then hopefully the students will feel more comfortable with each other, with the teacher, to, slowly begin to have more and more students show their camera. And so there shouldn't be a negative impact for a student not showing their face on camera for the various reasons that I've explained, Bruce. But obviously, right, a teacher can try to encourage and work with the class and as part of building the classroom environment, so that it does become one that's, they're able to see students' faces, because it is. I mean, I could see why teachers are really trying to get that to happen, because it is difficult to be teaching and speaking to either an icon or a blank screen, but no, students should not be negatively impacted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Marcus, for your great presentation. Very thorough, excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 10, for board member who would like to address the board on non-agendized items. I don't see any requests. Mr. Venezi, do you have anyone submit any comment?
There's no written public comment.
Okay, great, thank you. Agenda item number 11.01, a presentation from Superintendent.
Yeah, I will be very brief on this because Ms. Marquez just gave such a thorough presentation. What I want to do is just kind of highlight a couple of things that we've shared last time. Again, Ms. Marquez mentioned that we have a 4-phase approach. We've already had 2 task force meetings to figure out phase 3. And we'll continue to meet as we move forward. And I have a slide that also covers that. She already talked about our block schedule. One of the things I think we all should be very proud of is the fact that pre-COVID-19, our average daily attendance across the district was 95.6%. And as you can see in the third week, we have now surpassed that. We're at 96.62%. So I'm just, again, as I mentioned last board meeting, I think this is, we can really give thanks to three groups of individuals, right? Our parents are really working hard to get their students engaged. Our students are stepping up to the plate because they understand now that they have to progress through the curriculum, and their grades can fluctuate now. But I really have to just give the hats off to our entire staff for the amount of work that they did over the summer, the preparation. You saw the chart with over 106 professional development opportunities, almost 1,700 staff members participated. We had another 100 that participated with the Foothill Crouse of Innovation. And our staffs really worked hard to make sure that our students had the links and ready to go on that first day of school. So it's just it's an amazing feat, and I'm very proud of the work that everyone has done in the organization. One of the things that we talked about is that students that do not have connectivity, students that do not have a safe or quiet place to study, that they can come and access our Wi-Fi on our campuses, as well as you know, we do not mandate teachers to have to teach from their classroom. It's voluntary. They can teach from home or they can teach from their classroom. So you can see that on each day, you can see that there's not that many students that are taking advantage of coming to school and accessing. And you can see that there are a few teachers at each site that are coming, that are choosing to teach from their classroom for remote. But again, it's a voluntary process, and you can see that, you know, this is another task that we've assigned to our sites. And so making sure that they remember to update the ongoing list so that we have a sense of how many people are on campus at any given time, so that we can adjust in terms of supervision and things of that nature. The other thing I want to highlight, last time we talked about doing the lunch and dinner, but we just got word that the USDA has now approved the summer feeds program again through December. So we're back to feeding the entire community like we did all spring and summer. And so not only are we going to feed the entire community, but we're also going to do the lunch and dinner also. So now you don't have to worry about showing your ID card, and family members can now come and pick up the food also. So that's wonderful that the federal government stepped up in support of that. One of the things that the task force is working with is that we know that we're on the state watch list as a county, and this is the criteria for us to come off the watch list, and it's something that's going to take time. And so once we come off the watch list, we also know that the governor has set up the criteria to close a school if once schools reopen. And I think what happens, particularly at the state level, is so many people make decisions that are in the context of primary schools, elementary, K-8 schools, because most people just don't have a clue to what it takes to run a high school and a high school district for that matter. Because when you think about the first criteria, if a student or staff in a single stable cohort tests positive, that entire cohort now goes back on 14 days. So if I'm a third grade teacher, I have a stable cohort of students, and they have that teacher, and they have that teacher every single day. And maybe 2 days a week they get someone else for PE, and maybe 1 or 2 days a week they get someone else for art. But for the most part, they have that single teacher, and that's easy. But if you think of the high school, and I have an English period, first period with 30 kids, and someone tests positive, we know that the symptoms don't come right away. So if that student is back in school and that student goes to second period, which is a whole nother group of 30 kids, and goes to third period, which is a whole nother group of 30 kids, it's almost going to be impossible for the high schools to set up a hybrid approach that we can say that if we follow these conditions, we'll be able to keep people safe. It's going to be very limited on how we do that. And then again, if 5% of the school tests positive, the school closes for 14 days. And if 25% of the entire district catches COVID-19 or tests positive for COVID-19, the entire district closes. So the task force has been working well. I want to show you that you know, we have 30 members on the task force. We have administrators. We have Ms. Cortese. We have CSEA. We have ESTA members. We have students. We have parents. Adult Ed is also represented. And as Ms. Marquez said, that these are the 3 primary questions that the task force is going to address. And that we will bring back a recommendation to the board, because ultimately the board has the final say on whether or not we fully go back to school. And I just want to highlight one more thing in this area is that one of the reasons that staff brought forward to the board back in June 25th, I think it was, that we wanted to start in distance learning in the fall is because you really cannot compare our district to any other district. Again, as I mentioned, we're a high school district. We're not a K-12 district because we would have a different response to primary. But we also shouldn't be comparing ourselves to Los Gatos, Palo Alto, Mountain View, because they don't have the same number of high COVID cases in their zip codes like we do. So just because they may open up in 3, 4, 5 weeks doesn't mean Eastside needs to open up. And quite frankly, we have everything in place to meet the guidelines of SB 90 to track everything we need to track to remain in distance learning if we have to all year long. So there's no rush to bring a recommendation to the board. And that's all I have for tonight. Any questions, comments, feedback?
Great. I'm glad that we have Member Cortese sitting on that task force.
Yep, thankful for all the work on that task force. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. People freeze on me. I'm like, am I on or not? Apologize if this has already been explained. But I know we measure like learning and growth in different ways, and we're figuring this out as we go with distance learning. But is there something in particular that we're looking at as we think about making sure that our students are moving forward and progressing academically? That's one. Like, what does that sound like, that conversation or that thinking, that planning? And the other one is, especially for our seniors, are we following them and making sure that they're in a good place so that they can graduate and be like super proactive? And Marquez, you spoke to a system earlier, but I don't know if that's the system, but just at a high level, how are we thinking about it? And also understanding that we're flying the plane as we build it, kind of, with, you know, COVID-19.
So as I talked about, as I just said, that we have everything in place to support SB 90. And SB 90, that trailer bill, really set all school districts the expectation of being in distance learning. How are you going to measure student success? How are you going to measure student engagement? And we've already worked with our auditors to say, this is what we have in place. Does this meet the intent of the law? And they've agreed with that. And if you look at our schedule is set up so that we have that entire Wednesday, particularly in the afternoon, for students to be able to meet with counselors. We have the Tuesday, Thursday, Friday afternoon sessions to support our counselors are doing amazing outreach. They're not going to let any senior fall through the crack. In fact, they know that they have to double down with their efforts through distance learning. And in a way, distance learning is actually allowing them to meet more kids, because otherwise they would have to go into the classroom, or kids would have to schedule an appointment to come in, and you'd have long lines because, of course, you know, even with the caseload of 450 to 1, that's a lot of kids to deal with. So part of this is actually benefiting accessing more students around that. And then Ms. Marquez, you want to highlight a little bit more on the engagement. I forget what we're calling it again. Thank you.
It's participation log.
Thank you. Participation log.
Yeah. So the participation log is a technical piece, right, to note students' level of participation. But I think Board Member Chavez, where you're going is how do we continue to assess via a virtual distance learning setting to allow for us to continue to collect data as a teacher, for me to know where are my students, do I go quicker, do I need to slow down? And I think, like I said, I can't just shout out our teachers enough, because the amount of work that they are putting into providing creative ways of continuing to assess students through formative assessment. So we're really shifting from this idea of this, you know, summative assessment at the end that has to be secure, that it's a you know, very binary, you get this wrong, you got this right. It's teachers are really being creative around using formative assessments to look at what are the students getting, what are they not, and so how do I fill in those gaps, and how do I support them, and how do I use that built-in tutorial time to really then be able to get those students to support them, right? Part of that pupil learning loss, like how do I ensure that students aren't losing the content? One of the things our subject area coordinators are doing, so I want to highlight them and their work, is they're working with their departments, their content areas, to identify what are those essential skills and standards that are going to be the key ones to focus on, because this year is different, right? We started different, and so we can't have that expectation that I'm going to start on, you know, page 1 of this book and go to page 747, right? So we're going to have to look at it differently. We're going to have to look at instruction as what is the essential content, the essential standards and skills that are going to allow the student to still progress to the next level, but then also obviously meet that vision of getting those strategic thinking skills that are the transferable skills. And so they're doing a lot of work in that area. And then just to add on the senior piece, our counselors actually have had a lot of communication around how do we get our students their grad inventory so that they know how many credits they have and what they have to do. So they continue to work on their caseloads to make sure that, one, students and parents know their current status going into the school year and what are the options that they have available. We still have Cyber High. That is a viable option for our students needing to recover credits. And so counselors are still working on developing those plans for those seniors to ensure that they graduate.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I know we talk about a lot of this stuff, but you know, even, oh gosh, as a parent and an educator who understands this work in the live scene, right? It is so hard for me to wrap my head around distance learning, right? And so I think it's really important that we continue to talk about it, that we continue to engage as we, you know, support our community in really wrapping their heads around it. So thank you for going into more depth, both of you. Really.
Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Chris, so when that county or state that open up for the criteria that we get off watch list, my question is, do we require all teachers and staff to take the test before going back to school to teach?
Yeah, so we have not, in our MOU, we do have the recommendation that before teachers come back on to campus with ESTA that they get tested, but it's not a requirement from the state level.
Oh, okay. And even though we gonna go back to school when we open, then the student and teacher still gonna wear masks?
Yes, that will
Is that
be,
the requirement?
that's part of the Department of Public Health guidelines, and that will be required. And if a student chooses not to wear a mask, then they'll have to remain in distance learning.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's my question.
Okay, so moving on, agenda item 11.02. This is the issue we discussed at the last meeting relating to CSBA call for nominations and directors at large for Asian Pacific Islander and Hispanic. We didn't have board members either nominate or volunteer to run themselves. And we want some time to think, and now it's back on the agenda. Does anybody have any interest in either self-nominate or nominate anyone in other school district to run for these two posts?
I do not, and I just want to say I can hear that this is what the topic is, but I can't actually see the tiny print on the shared document. So.
Oops.
But that's okay. I know which topic we're on.
Okay. So we can go one by one first. For the nomination for Director at Large for the Asian Pacific Islander CSBA, the Director at Large. Do we have anyone that either self-nominate or want to nominate any other trustee in any other school district? So we don't see any. Okay, so then that's fine. Let's go to the next one. For the Director at Large for the Hispanic CSBA election.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Jose Magaña, San Jose Unified.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Does everyone know Jose? Is there anything that you want to mention about, or speak a sentence or two about Jose, Member Chavez?
I've personally known Jose a few years now in the educator space. He's also been a teacher. He's worked in the ed tech field. I mean, he recently got elected, same time I did, but to San Jose Unified. He's a new dad, so is in that world as well. Really progressive. He's just got nominated to be, I want to say San Jose City's chair. Is there like a chair for the Library Commission? He's like the chair of the Library Commission as of recently. Doing a lot of great stuff, has a lot of potential. I think he would bring a great perspective and advocacy on the Latino.
He also works for City Year.
Oh, okay. All right. So, General Counsel, Mr. Ruiz, does the Student Governing Board liaison vote on this agenda item?
Yes, he does.
He does? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Member Chavez and second by Member Herrera in nominating Trustee Jose, I forgot how to spell it. Yeah, for the CSBA Hispanic Director at Large. Ms. Gillen, would you like to call for the roll vote?
Bruce Nguyen, Student Governing Board Member, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Roll call vote for the board. President Nguyen,
Aye.
Vice President Lay,
Aye.
Clerk J. Manuel Herrera,
Aye.
Member Patty Cortese,
Aye.
Member Lorena Chavez.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Continue with agenda item 11.03, which is the having discussion and action to adopt a proposed amendments to 2020-2021 meeting calendar. So the amended calendar is on the Zoom. Any board member have any questions, comments, anything that you want to bring up, or we can just
Move to approve.
So this is just basically changing the date of the Vanto retreat.
Okay.
There are no other changes, right? Okay, thank you.
Is it the retreat still be on Zoom?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have something that I need to take off a little bit early on the September 19. So could I ask to get off to 1 p.m. instead of 3? Or could we start it earlier at 8?
I mean, we can do from what depend on the agenda. I think if we let's see what we have on the agenda, and then try to stick to the schedule and discuss what's on the agenda accordingly, and really stick to the time that allot to or allocate to each of those agenda items. I think we can get out at 1.
Okay, yeah, I just need to leave at 1 if I can, or if we can start early. That's my request.
We can start at 8:30 if other board members feel like that they want to do it that way. If not, we just stick with 9 o'clock. But I'm okay.
Let's stick with 9. I mean, let's see what the agenda is going to be. And if we have to adjust it to 8:30 because of the agenda, then we will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda by Member Cortese. Any second?
I second.
Second by Lay. Let's do the roll vote.
Student Governing Board Member Bruce Wynn, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Wynn,
Aye.
Vice President Lay,
Aye.
Clerk Herrera,
Aye.
Member Cortese,
Aye.
Member Chavez.
Okay. Member Chavez? Okay.
Sorry, I said I, my internet, I'm so sorry.
Okay, continue. Presentation, discussion, or action regarding career technical education by Director of Career Services, Mr. Tim Nguyen.
Hey, good evening, trustees and Mr. Superintendent. My name is Tim Nguyen. I'm Director of Career Services. Thank you for the opportunity to brief you on our career technical education program. At Eastside, a career technical education career pathway is an elective program that allows students to explore a chosen field of study through an integrated, highly relevant curriculum and hands-on learning. When students sign up for career pathways, they get to explore their field of interest and to see what it looks like in the real world. This connects their learning to the world of work as they get to learn and apply skill sets needed to thrive in the workforce. In many ways, choosing a career pathway at Eastside is similar to a student declaring a major in college. Next slide, please. One way of achieving equity is to leverage the unique features of our CTE career pathways. At Eastside, we offer a variety of options, and our students are able to choose one that is best fit their interests. Students are teamed with a CTE teacher and 2 other teachers over the course of 4 years, where they are given guidance and support. Next slide, please. Our CTE career pathways are designed around the linked learning model. We focus on preparing our students for various options after high school. Each CTE teacher is teamed with at least 2 core teachers, and together they make sure our students are successful and are prepared. The pathway replicates the workplace through industry practices, equipment, and software use. Our students are offered multiple opportunities to engage, network, and practice with professionals in their field of studies. Teachers in our pathways work as a team to support our students to make sure they meet our district requirement to graduate, as well as being prepared for work. There is a short video, but I am afraid that if we play it, it's gonna be, it might mess up our technology at the other end. So I'm gonna, if you can show it, that's fine. If not, we can skip the video and go to the next slide.
It'd be great if you could do the video at some point, you know.
We could probably send you the link. It's embedded in our Eastside YouTube channel and also on our webpage. But
Tim, is it the one that was just completed or one from the previous year?
It's the one, the ones with from the previous year. The one that's just completed is just about work-based learning, but that's fine.
So it's on the YouTube webpage, and it was sent to the board last year, but I'll resend it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That particular video actually kind of encapsulate the essence of our career technical education program here at Eastside. In any case, these are the current pathways being offered at Eastside. So as you can see, there is a variety of pathways in different sectors, and many of our schools have more than one pathways. Mr. Kiala mentioned his school had 3, and so they are listed here.
So can students choose a pathway that is not offered at their school site?
So they can apply to the magnet program, and that application process starts at the beginning of the year, each year in January. And we invite all freshman students, entering freshmen, to attend our magnet night, and then that window is open, application window is open, and the student can apply to various pathways.
Is that fairly common where students are enrolled in these kind of programs that is not at their home school site? Do we have a lot of like that?
Yes, every year we have about 200 or 300 students attending various pathways outside of their home school. So once they are accepted to the magnets program at a particular school, that school becomes their home school.
So Tim, and if they did not finish the whole program, would they have to resend it to their home school?
So there is an agreement that the student and parents sign when they enter into the magnet program, and it's really up to the local teacher and administrator to kind of hold the students to that agreement. Often the teachers work with the students and family to make sure that the student continues to stay on the pathway. So that's why we have a team of teachers and counselors working with the students, so that we make sure that the students are successful in the pathway and stay in the pathway.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So currently we have 3,600 students enrolled across our various pathways in our district. And this table here shows you the number per sector, really, because, for example, business finance, we have 3 or 4 business finance pathway across our district. So that's 491 across our district.
So it's interesting to see where the largest enrollment is: multimedia, health and human services, engineering, business finance.
Right.
It's really, the program is really created based on when careers that are high, what they call high wage, high demand careers. And then there's a part where there interest of students, as well as whether or not we can find teachers with a CTE credential to actually start and teach in a pathway. So those combination of
I'm going to probably jump the gun with this question. Is there any kind of evaluation process in the delivery of these programs, any feedback loops that allow us to get some sense of the effectiveness or the impact of these programs?
So actually, we are, as a program, we have to report and we have to follow a student beyond their high school year. So we do phone calls, follow up to report. So it's part of our reporting process to the state. But there is a lot of testimonials from the graduates. We have, I actually wanted to invite some of our graduates who are currently working in the industry to come back to speak on, as testimonials to the work that, that they are doing, as well as how being in a pathway have led them to where they are. So we have several students, and their testimonies are also on our webpage as well. We have a section where alumni of our pathways come back and share, some of their inspirational thought.
That's valuable, tracking after they graduate and collecting testimonials. I'm really talking about more formal, quote unquote, evaluation processes for program delivery. I don't mean to overstress that, because we don't have to do a complex type of system, but anything that has a questionnaire every year that allows students to give feedback on aspects of the program delivery might have some value. I don't know. I'm just asking what, it doesn't sound like we have that yet.
No, actually, we do have a survey, a student survey that we sent out to our students every year at around May. And there's a very similar question to our student survey that is administered through the wider student body, but specifically for our program, we asked our students, so one of the focus in career technical education is the leadership component of career technical education. Mm-hmm. And that piece we have designed so that it kind of support the delivery of the 5 C's, part of the graduation senior kind of profile, graduate profile of
I'd be interested in seeing that survey instrument.
I do have the survey result, and I can send it forward. I can forward it.
Yeah, the actual questions asked, and
yes,
whatever data you've collected on that in that regard. Thank you.
Yes.
And then Tim, do we not have members, industry partners that come in and also evaluate our program? Isn't that part of the requirement for the grant that we receive from the state?
We do. So we have a district career technical education advisory board, and that group of industry professionals look at our program and at the various component of our program and give us advice, and also kind of help us with some of the technical delivery of the instruction, because some of the pathways here are highly technical, and so they support our teacher as well in that area. So we report all of our findings to the Cte Advisory Board, and then they also make recommendations.
Yeah, I have a general interest in any evaluative information tracking once they graduate, the testimonials, the survey, anything that's evaluative, I have an interest in. So just want to state that.
So, also, quick question: are some of these classes are A to G? Are they not?
So most of the classes are A through G, and those are not. We are in the process of getting them A through G. So mostly G credit for electives. Okay, next slide, please. So one of the highlight of our program is the summer internship. And this is made possible through the partnership with the City of San Jose and the Silicon Valley organization. So this year with distant learning, we were still able to provide 60 virtual internship for 60 students over online. So the students are paid $15 an hour, and foster youths are paid $17 an hour. And they're placed in positions that are based on their sector of interest. And they also receive summer work experience credits towards graduation in our district. So another benefit of CTE Pathways is that the student can receive college credits while taking some of our CTE courses. And so these are the courses that currently match up with some of the courses at the various colleges in our community here. So Mission College is a college that is partnering with us for dual enrollment, San Jose City College, and Evergreen Valley College. And you can see the courses that the students will get credit for and the East Side equivalent, it's CTE courses. All right. So funding for our program, we are multi-funded by multiple grants as well as the general fund. So most of our CTE teachers' salary is being paid for out of general fund. The rest are being paid, the supplemental part of our program is paid for through California Career Pathway Trust, the California Technical Education Incentive Grant, and the K-12 Strong Workforce Grant. So you can see the year span that these grants were occurring in our district over the past 4 or 5 years.
So the 2015 marks the kind of the turn from state funding directly to districts. Is that the year?
Yes. So this is when I started. So in the past, as I understand it, that is the case, but the state have moved towards funding school district directly because they wanted to serve more students locally at their school and want to revive some of our quote unquote vocational courses in the past. So when I went to school here at Eastside, we have auto shop in several of our schools. Currently, we only have auto shop at one school, and that's Independence High School. And so I think that the state wanted to kind of directly fund school district to support this work.
So again, 2015 kind of a pivotal year then in how career technical education is provided to the students of the Eastside Union High School District. And
Yes,
that
sir.
also marks the year several of us on this board have served on the Metro Ed board. And I'm currently on the Metro Ed board. And it's certainly from that perspective, that's the year where there was a tremendous loss of funding capacity and a growing struggle with maintaining programming. And so I'm just noticing, that the district began to build its programs in-house, delivered at the district itself versus through Metro Ed. And this is when it happened, 2015 moving onwards,
And so I think that's really is a testament to the board and the superintendent's vision, because many some our sister school districts, San Jose and Unified, have done away with many of their vocational courses, so they really don't have access to any of these grants because they don't have CTE courses to create pathways. So now, as I understand it, they're rebuilding, but it's very difficult once you do away with these career technical education or vocational courses to bring back these courses, because one of the requirements is that the teacher has to have a CTE credential in that pathway. So as described earlier in previous presentation, distant learning is challenging for our CTE teachers. As you can imagine, many of the courses are really require lab student working with their hands, using tools and equipment. But we were able to work with IT, and we were able to identify and purchase emulation type software to mimic some of the traditional software that the teacher are used to in the classroom. These are computer-aided or CAD software that can run on Chromebooks, or they're web-based, so they can be run on Chromebooks. We video to support some of our multimedia teachers in film and videos. And the rest of it is like photo and line art, where there are software to emulate these software as well. In terms of what's going on in the classroom, many of our shop classes the teacher are having to teach online. So they are, as mentioned earlier, they are very creative, and they are teaching shop safety. They're getting students to, many of the certificates program are online already. So they're using this opportunity to get many more students to go through this online training and receiving the certification for OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration certificates. We also partner with the colleges, so City College and Evergreen and Stanford University through their virtual design construction program. So there's a certificate that is also being offered by Stanford, and our transportation pathway, the students are working with Ford Motor online certification, and we are also working with Honda to see if they can get our student on the Honda certification program as well, Honda Motors. So next slide, please. So this is a sample what the Stanford University certificates look like, and 40 of our students received this certificate from Stanford University last year, those that were attending the construction technology program in our district. So this is the type of things that are happening in the classroom today.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Questions, board members? I saw from Von Lay. You have questions?
Yes. Thank you, Director Tim Nguyen, for your presentation. I remember I visit, excuse me, I visit YB High School before the pandemic. I think during the construction technology classroom, and I saw the building trade representative was there. That's really very helpful to look into how they can support our students. But are those students received when they finish that class, do they receive the certificate like the one that you mentioned at the Stanford University?
Not all, because the course has, so the participation is really, all the two students are taught the same thing and are doing the same thing, but they need to do a project that and complete the project and go through the presentation and go through the training, and And so it takes more time, if you will, extra work. And so the students are given that opportunity, but to do, and that certificate took 3 years to negotiate for the kids. Our teacher, that certificate, the SciFA certificate, is actually a very prestigious certificate that Stanford offer to building professionals, so people who are civil engineers. So their program is open to all people across the world. And so when they came to us through S4CA to see if our teacher would be willing to go to the training, they actually wanted to charge us what they would charge, the industry people. And that would be $100,000 for a cohort of 20 people. And we just simply didn't have that money, but then we were able to negotiate so that our teachers, all of our construction teachers have attended, and including Mr. Roger Silvera, who is our director of facilities. He himself went and got the CTE credential because he's interested in just the work. So we have a cohort of teachers who have gotten the SciFA certificate like you saw earlier. And then they were charged to go back and teach the students the same concept. And so our negotiation is, if the teacher had the certificate and they went back and teach the students the same thing, and the student were able to do the same thing that the teacher were doing, then they should get a SciFA certificate as well. And for Stanford, the pushback, there was pushback with everything. So, but in the end, they kind of agreed that, it just makes sense. So I think that that's a good way to attract students to Eastside. Is a good way to attract students to a career because construction is not just hammer and nail. It's more, there's a variety of careers attached to construction that will allow students to earn a living wage living in Silicon Valley. And sometimes construction is just overlooked by parents and students because of their preconception of just like the hammer and nail aspect of building, when there's obviously architecture, engineering, and so forth.
I have 2 more questions. The page you mentioned about summer internship program, you did put student pay $15 an hour and foster youth $17 an hour. I was wondering, did you open for some of the McKinney-Vento student youth to be involved in this summer internship program, because that is the most vulnerable group?
Right. So the only requirement that they are part of our CTE pathways, and the reason why that is because our program is grant funded. And so we have to, first, we can only support CTE teachers and their team members. And then so on. So if they're in the classroom CTE pathways, then we can support them. And so many of our students are McKinney-Vento that are in our CTE program. Likewise, there are many foster students that are foster children that are in the foster program that is in our CTE path.
All right. My last question is for the Cte Career Pathway enrollment. You mentioned in here that automotive student did not involve it in a dual enrollment courses. I remember when I visit Independence and for the automotive classroom, and I asked a couple of students that when they graduated, they would like to move forward with, I believe it's Evergreen College. They also have advanced class for automotive pathway. So could you explain or clarify more that maybe students that were involved in that career pathway and want to, have the dual enrollment courses, and maybe they choose that as a career and they can look for a job that's much more steady to support the family?
So as mentioned earlier, Mr. Kia kind of made the connection. Dual enrollment is a direct way of students. So the student attend a course or a class on one of our campuses. So it could be, for example, Construction 2 at Piedmont Hills High School. And so the teacher in Piedmont Hills High School is an adjunct instructor at San Jose City College. And if he teach Construction 2 and students in his class, he can work with the city college to enroll the students who wants to get college credit to enroll at simultaneously. And so once the semester is complete and the year is complete, he can then tell the registrar at City College that Kim Nguyen, who is enrolled in his class, Construction 2, receive a B. And so then Tim will have a transcript record at City College for Construction 101A for how many ever credit that is.
Yes,
So that
Tim, the question specifically was automotive at Evergreen. Was that just a misprint that we left it off? Because I thought we
I'm sorry. So in general, that's dual enrollment. The reason why the automotive program does not have a dual enrollment course currently is because the instructor that was the adjunct instructor between Independence High School and Evergreen Valley College resigned. He took a job in the Central Valley. And so we no longer have that course available because he was the adjunct instructor over at with us and Evergreen.
But before we do have, right?
Before when he was here, yes.
This year. Oh, okay. All right, it's good that good to know that. So hopefully that we will have the dual enrollment for the student that enroll on the automotive. We'll be glad to have that, the dual enrollment. So that's my question. Thank you for your presentation, Tim. It's really good.
Thank you.
Board Member Chavez, questions, comment?
Hi, thank you, Tim, for your awesome presentation. Really thorough, really exciting. I really appreciate the hustle and making programs happen for our East Side students. I'm like, I wish I would have been in one of those meetings and say, what do you mean $100,000? Like by having our East Side students, that's like, there's no price to that, like it should be an honor for you. So thank you for being the voice and making it happen for our kids. I had a question in regards to demographics of the dual enrollment classes, right? It's really cool that students can have dual enrollment in both JC and get JC credits as well as high school credits. But generally speaking, what would you say is the demographic of the students leveraging that opportunity?
So when you say JC, for the people who do not know what you mean by that?
Junior college, sorry, thank you.
So the demographic would be mirroring the classroom. So everyone who is in the course or the class at in one of our campuses can get the credit. And so often the teacher would enroll students for all students to go to a particular dual enrollment course at the JCs or at the junior college.
So are you saying from all the CTE programs, dual enrollment is reflective of our demographics in the East Side? That would mean the majority of students enrolled in CTE are Latino. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
So the majority of students, in general, our pathways are mirroring our demographic. But in certain pathways, for example, automotive pathway, there's not as much female students as male. So there is that selection at that level with the students. And truth be told, even though we have these dual enrollment courses, it depends on from year to year really on the number of students who enroll in the course locally. We are still, having the challenge is with the master's schedule in our district. At certain level, the student have to either make up some course or they have to have their interest in like taking another AP course. These are elective classes, so when they don't take this elective class, that means they are taking something else. One of the requirements to graduate, for example.
Yeah.
So there is that constraint.
That makes sense. I'd love to see more, and maybe you and I can meet separately. I'd love to see the demographics and how they've changed. I know something that's really top of mind for me is how to make different pathways and more pathways available for our students as a whole. Some students are going to choose college, some students are going to choose career, but for me, what's really important is that they can choose what those pathways are and that they have access to them. And so I'd like to see, particularly for our Latino students, my understanding is that there's not that many that, but I could be wrong, which is why I want to see the data, the information, to see like where are they enrolled, how have the trends changed throughout the years, for that purpose, right? To understand the different pathways that they have access to and which students in our district, not just the Latinos, but I said Latinos because Latinos happen to be the largest demographic in terms of ethnic background for our district.
All right, well, thank you.
I'm sorry, I have another question. So two things. One is I would like to see, if you could forward, a depiction of the actual funding that the district has had from before the state switched to the district. So 2014 forward, year by year, what's been the funding for district delivered CTE programs? Also if it's too intricate, you don't need to do it, but if it's doable, I would like to see a breakout by programs as they've increased their enrollment from 2014 to the present time because there was more funding, because there was just more way to develop programs. It would be interesting for me to see that overall trend, that overall pattern. That's one thing. The other is in your management and experience of all of our CTE district programs, is there an element of competition now that is structurally present where the district gains and Metro Ed loses, or Metro Ed gains but the district loses because we're actually delivering similar programs, in various areas? Is there competition structurally right now?
I don't think that there is competition per se, and the reason why that is Metro Ed we still send approximately 500 students or so over to Metro Ed every year, and these are students that
it used to be 600 plus.
It still is.
Right. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but the number is still very, it's pretty stable, the number of students that are being sent over there. Okay. And case in point, we have biotech or health and human services at Andrew Hill, but some students still opt to go to SVCTE so that they have a unique program over there, dental hygienist, which we don't have at Andrew Hill. Yeah. So there is a place and space for SVCTE, and we're not in competition.
Yeah, SVCTE is the formal name for what we all call Metro Ed, but yeah, okay. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
On to agenda item 13.01, which is to have a discussion or take action to approve contracts for professional services over $25,000. And I was advised that there is a written statement or note that for our Associate Superintendent Vanderzee to read. Mr. Vanderzee, do you want to read that statement, or would you rather have Mr. Potter read it himself?
I'll read it, and he can always raise his hand as well. This statement comes from Julio Pardo, identifying a staff member on agenda item 13.01. I'd like to know why we need to consider outsourcing possible work when right now we have workers, bus drivers, who are not being used to do their job. It appears to be giving away funds we are needing badly in the future. If possible, I would like to give voice on this matter. Thank you.
Right.
That is the only public comment, written comment we have on this item.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions, comments on this agenda item, or if not, we either take an action to approve or not approve. Board members?
I think it would be useful to, I think we owe it to CSEA to offer them some explanation.
Well, I think if Mr. Potter, if you want to be more specific about your comments, I think this is the time to do that too. If not, we can go ahead with our discussion.
He has raised his hand.
Okay, Mr. Potter, go ahead, sir.
So the reason why I brought this up is because, you know, we've been told all along about, you know, the financial straits that our district is in, and in reading through it, it appears to me that Safe Trans has been getting close to $4 million a year. Now, I haven't had a chance to look at our district budget to see what the total transportation costs are, but $4 million really seems, $4 million a year seems like a lot. And the way I read this is that this year, for whatever reason, and it's possibly because we have students that may at the last minute need some kind of transportation, the district wants to have something so that Safe Trans won't give away their bus drivers somewhere else. And so we pay them $4 million to make sure that we have them. But if that's the case, if we don't use them at all, do we get any of that $4 million back, or are we just giving it to them and they get to keep it without ever using a driver? Meanwhile, our drivers are sitting at home because they're not being used anywhere else. I mean, at least they're being used for other things, which I don't know if they are. Maybe helping, you know, pass out books, or because we did have at our MOU where they could do certain things that could help, you know, and to me, it would be like helping students. But if we have bus drivers that aren't being used, if just 2 students all of a sudden need transportation, why would we need to go to an outside agency when we have bus drivers that could probably transport those students? So it just doesn't make sense to me why we would just give away $4 million without having some kind of strings attached where if we don't need your services, we get at least 75% of it back or something, instead of just giving the money away. And then next year saying, oh, we're short 12 million, and so we have to make all these cuts, and classify will be, you know, we don't need these bus drivers, so we're gonna cut them. And that's just part of the issue I have with that. Thank you.
So I see Chris Chu raising his hand. Mr. Chu, do you want to respond to that comment, or do you have other comments you want to make?
No, yes, may I respond to the comments? I appreciate Julio Pardo's question in regards to the contract specific to Safe Trans. As was mentioned, the contract in place right now is to secure the services for transporting our special needs students when we actually get back into in-classroom delivery. As far as obligations for Safe Trans, if Safe Trans isn't providing a route at this time, we aren't obligated to pay them anything. So the fact that right now we're entering into a contract does not necessarily mean that we will be paying out the full amount of the contract if they don't drive any routes for us for the entire year.
Right now.
So am I understanding correctly, Mr. Ju, that the contract is in place so that we, if they do transport our students, that we have a mechanism for paying them? But if we don't transport, if they do not transport any of our students, then we don't pay them anything.
Correct.
Period. I'm a
Great.
trustee for the East Side Union High School District in San Jose.
Herrera, you need to mute, I think, unless you're making a comment.
Chris Chu, I have a question that
I took note in your.
the original amount is 11 million, but we just amend a 3,983,610 just to to a special transportation service for special education student. So original amount 11,950,830. They're not catering to a special ed student, or we have to amend it this time?
I'm not understanding your question. Actually, Superintendent Funk, can you scroll down to that item?
Yeah, the original amount, previous amount.
Okay, so this is how I understand the contract works. And correct me, Mr. Chu, if it's incorrect. We increase the contract amount, so it's there, but this is a cost reimbursement type of contract. We will only pay them when they provide a service. If they don't provide service, then we don't pay them. But that's the amount that we allocate for that services.
But my question that the original amount already allocated 11,950,000 already. So this amendment is the request proposal for this coming year only, or I was confused. I don't know why did we amend it in that category?
The original amount that shows 11.9 million represents a multi-year contract. So roughly per year, it's in that $3 to $4 million range. We're in the middle of a multi-year contract.
So how much did we spend it already?
We have spent before this year approximately 11.9 million of the multi-year contract.
So we spent all of them. So now this is amendment for this coming year?
Correct.
And we will not redo the new contract, or we're gonna have to amend it this year, or we're gonna amend it next year? Can you clarify those?
I'm not quite understanding it. As far as this year's contract,
Chris, is this the last year of the contract? Because it's 15.9 million, so it looks like
this is the last year of the original 3-year contract.
Okay. And we did not anticipate this 3,900,000 until this year, correct?
This is a type of service we need it every year. It doesn't go away. Transportation for special ed student doesn't go away. We have to allocate money every year for that service.
No, I understand.
If they don't drive, we don't pay. That's how it is.
No, but that's why I'm saying that. So in that 3 year, we already spent the 11 million already. So now we have to amend 3 million for the service that Safe Trend will carry, our special ed to school if they need it, right?
that's correct.
No, but again, let me clarify. This is amendment number 1, which represents the 1-year extension. We're beyond. I believe we're beyond the original terms of the multi-year agreement. We are now into the extension. So the first extension, which represents amendment 1, has a value of 3.9 million.
So the contract, the original contract was July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020. So we've amended it for 1 year to cover this year, which is a 3.9 million that will only pay out when the service is provided. And we will then have to do an RFP this year if we want to do a new RFP, or I think the original contract allows us to extend it up to 2 years. So this is the first year of that extension.
Yes.
So I guess my other question, and Andre Bell probably knows the contract better than anyone, that he's raising his hand, but my other question, I hope is an obvious answer, is that we will use our internal bus drivers to deliver routes before we go to
Before we contract to Safe Trans, we will use our drivers first. That is correct.
So if we use our bus driver before we use Safe Train, then do we have to allow, 3 million nine? I mean, that amount of money is very big amount. So I was concerned that, if we have to amend, why do we pick 500,000 or $1 million? Why do we come up with 3 million nine? Is that the number tied in with something?
Because that's the average cost of transporting our students with Safe Trans. We do not have enough bus drivers to cover the routes to serve our special needs students. So that's based on what we paid last year.
So we allocate this amount of money, just put that money in the side, but we will use it when the Safe Train transport our special ed student. Correct.
So if we
so my thought is, if we allocate this amount of money, that means we have to lock in. We cannot touch this amount of money until when the service provided. So that is a lot of money that we want to have to revisit it and see. During the pandemic, maybe we not use it, but still we have to allocate a 3 million night aside for the transportation special ed.
Trustee Lay, please remember that the budget cycle has multiple touch points. And so when we do our first interim in December, and if we're still in distance learning, we will make the adjustment at that time. And then the second interim, if we haven't spent that money, we will make that adjustment. So that money will then go towards the fund balance and lower our deficit. Just like any other budget that we have a budget for that we don't spend throughout the year, that's savings at the end of the year.
Okay, so your estimate annual spending for this transaction is roughly $1 million, correct? This is what you request to amend number 1.
I'm
right,
sorry, I wasn't able to hear you. You went out.
Oh, sorry for my internet. My question that this is the estimate annual spending based on what is last few years we anticipate for this transaction.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, that's all I have.
Mr. President, I see Mr. Bill has his hand up.
Yeah, okay, I haven't, go ahead. Mr. Bell, go ahead, Mr. Bell.
I just want to confirm that we are estimating the expenditures. We are not necessarily saying we will spend that in a year. Based upon the RFP that we put in 3 years ago, these were the annual costs. Due to COVID, these costs will go down significantly. but we do have to estimate the budget for this year and change it because that was our annual cost.
But we already are in a half year or close to a half year that we're going to do a social distance. So
yes,
that's what's.
I think the superintendent told you correctly. After the first interim, that cost will decrease, pardon me, significantly. And after we go to the second interim, it will go down even further because we are not transporting students with our distance learning.
All right.
But if I may add something too, I do just want to add that as we prepare for our phased opening, and one of the student populations that will be the first to come back will be our students with disability. And if we're still mandated by certain public health guidelines, meaning there's less students that can be on a bus, that's going to impact also the service, which could potentially impact the cost. And so we're using this level of cost because even though they may be transporting less during the year, the usage may be different because of the number of students that will be allowed to be on a bus.
And that's correct.
All right. Okay, I need an action for this item.
Move to approve.
So moved by Cortese.
Second.
Second by Herrera. Let's do the roll vote. Ms. Gillen.
Student Governing Board Member Bruce Wynn, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Wynn?
Aye.
Vice President Lay?
Aye.
Clerk Herrera?
Aye.
Member Cortese?
Aye.
Member Chavez?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Agenda number 14, no items on this agenda item. Number 15 is the discussion and action to approve bond for capital projects contracts under $50,000.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second by Herrera. Let's do the roll vote.
Student Governing Board Member Bruce Wynn, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Wynn?
Aye.
Vice President Lay?
Aye.
Clerk Herrera?
Aye.
Member Cortese?
Aye.
Member Chavez?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is the consent action calendar. Need a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Cortese, second by Lay. Let's do the roll vote.
Student Governing Board Member Bruce Wynn, how do you vote?
I approve.
Thank you. Board roll call vote. President Wynn?
Aye.
Vice President Lay?
Aye.
Clerk Herrera?
Aye.
Member Cortese?
Aye.
Member Chavez?
Okay, next is written report recommendations. There's no written report. Item number 22, future agenda items. If anyone would like to request any board agenda, any agenda item to be placed for the next several board meetings, this is the time to do it.
I like to have a report for a presentation from social workers on any issue or how would they handle with students during pandemic.
I believe we already have, let's see.
I didn't see anything in there.
Would it be able to fall within, I was gonna say,
barrier
looking
and
at
challenge?
mine, in mental health supports, but I don't know.
Well, but I know that board member Lorena Chavez request for parent involvement engagement update. Maybe it's a time that we can ask for a social worker update also.
I mentioned, if you look at the
presentation.
parent update, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one from the bottom on mine, it says ethnic trends from mental health supports. Report presented. There's a date for fall 2020, so it should be happening this fall. And it's mental health supports. So I wonder if that could fall within that, if it makes sense. I don't know, Funk, if you think that makes sense, or if it should be something separate.
It's the same, yes.
Is it the same? Okay. Okay, then I don't have any new one, but on, okay, until 22.02, I would like to request on my item for the bond construction. I would like to have the presentation from the bond program about board discretionary in Measure Z for bond construction in October 2020. I want to be more specific.
So that's all you want is Measure Z discretionary, board discretionary.
Yes.
You got it.
Thank you.
Any board members, future agenda item? All right. Just a question, Superintendent. Under my name, there's an IB program presentation or something?
Yes.
Or update, and it says school year 2021. Will this be presented before I'm gone on by November?
So we're going to combine that one with Andrew Hill's school presentation, and we'll make sure that there's slides on there dealing with the IB program.
Okay, remember, November is my last board meeting.
Bittersweet, bittersweet.
All right.
I forget when they're scheduled, but we have, we have 2 board meetings a month. So Andrew Hill is scheduled before you leave.
Okay, thank you.
I also noticed that the topic that I've been asking for a while is the presentation on the non-cohort data. And I see it's down for November. I know that presentation has moved a lot, and in case that's my last board meeting, I'd like to hear that one too.
Yes, we had a discussion at Exec Council on Monday and discussed the different types of data we want to look at to help identify who the non-cohort students are and how we best can address them. So you will have that presentation before, well, yes, you will have it before December. It will be in November.
Great, thank you very much.
Member Cortese, you are officially forbidden to have November be your last meeting.
I second
See what the voters have to say about that.
Chris, so I have a career technical education you just presented to us already, correct? But the ethnic study, we were gonna be presented in the next couple months?
Yes, so the ethnic study, if you recall, is one of the action items to support the Black Lives Matter resolution. And so that is something that we are addressing in IPC this year. That's also something that we've added students to. So we will be presenting that to the board, as well as doing community outreach and get input from all stakeholders.
Because I received a letter from Arispa, Asian ethnic group, that they want to have some input on ethnic study relating to the Asian ethnic diversity, in the program.
So remember, we already have an ethnic studies class that was just discussed tonight with Overfelt's presentation. The biggest thing that we have to bring forward is the actual graduation requirement that is fully expected to be signed by Governor Newsom. So we need to talk about with the board on making it a graduation requirement. When will that be offered, and would it be a 5-credit course or a 10-credit course? So that's going to be the primary conversation around it. We will then also bring forward what the actual curriculum will be for that class.
And I will just add that there are already guidelines for the expectations of curriculum that the California Department of Education, along with that legislation, have put forth.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is Board of Trustees, Superintendent Communications and Comments. Let's start with our lead senior board member, Member Chavez.
I'd like to be referred to as the most energetic, the one that brings fresh ideas. Thank you. So as the one who brings fresh ideas and most energetic, yeah, I just really want to reiterate my gratitude for everyone during these times. There is a lot happening in our world, in our lives as individuals, and it is rough. And so just really want to, say thank you to the administration, to our teachers, to our students, to our parents for continuing to put their best foot forward. Yeah, those are my announcements. Short and sweet, kind of, right?
That's very energetic. Thank you. Board Member Gatesi, you want to go next?
Just echoing the thanks to everybody, and that's really all my comments tonight.
Thank you. Board Member Lay.
Well, I would like to say that I'm glad that we have a student governance board representative to voice their opinion, on our board meeting, and looking forward to support, that's all I have.
Okay, now our most senior board member in age and in years of service.
I'm holding up the other end of the spectrum from Board Member Chavez, which I guess almost makes me a relic rather than. Anyway, I don't really have any comments. It's been a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent.
No, I'll pass. I think I said enough.
Okay, so our governing board member, Bruce, you want to say something, any comment that you want to provide?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, this meeting is a bit long, but I can probably emphasize the use of equity, and especially during these times, because just today, a lot of students were complaining that they lost internet outage, and they were wondering if there were consequences to missing class, even though there was something they couldn't control. So I'm going to ask you, Superintendent Funk, on your response.
No student should lose out because of the internet power or the power going down on internet. They just need to call that in, and that will be an excused absence. And like any excused absence, a student can make up their work.
All right, yeah, definitely. It's just that, since they couldn't have internet access, they didn't know the procedure, and then there's just like a lot of communication issues.
Right, great, thank you. For me, I concur with everybody. It's a good meeting. I enjoy meeting with all of you again. It'll be twice a month until the end of November for me. Okay, board evaluation. Board meeting evaluation. Anybody want to say anything?
Hold on, I think Rogelio raised his hand. I don't know if you had a comment, Rogelio?
No, just something to report out at the end.
Oh, okay, report out. Good. Sorry. Go ahead, Len. Sorry.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Legal counsel report, closed session actions.
At the board's last regular meeting closed session, the board unanimously approved the First Amendment to the superintendent's contract, accepting his resignation. There are no further actions to report.
Thank you very much. Board meeting is now adjourned.